The third dimension is terror. These were the promotional words that Jaws 3 promised audiences back in 1983, when Jaws left the boundaries of 2D and leapt onto cinema screens in the third dimension, offering scared viewers a chance to feel even closer to the big shark beast. Not only that, but Jaws 3D was set in SeaWorld. A 3D shark movie about Jaws let loose in an attraction theme park chewing away on guests. That premise alone sounds awesome. I mean, it could have been like Jurassic Park before there even was Jurassic Park. It should have been epic. But sadly, it wasn't. Thanks to lousy 3D effects, which by the way do often look laughably awful, a weak story, and what for the most part looks like one big overblown SeaWorld commercial, Jaws 3D didn't exactly impress audiences and critics, but instead represented a decline in the franchise, a representation that the Jaws brand is no longer in its glory days and that it's only going to get worse from here. But despite what popular opinion says about the movie, is it really as awful as people say it is? Is there any enjoyability or redeemable features about this movie? After all, the movie tries something different. Unlike Jaws 2, which plays it safe and sticks very close to being like the first movie, and it has an impressive cast including Dennis Quaid, Louis Gossett Jr., Leah Thompson, and that guy from Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, of course. So today we are looking into Jaws 3D, the Jaws movie that took the franchise out of Amity Island, New York, and placed the action in SeaWorld, Florida, as we look into this truly bizarre entry into this killer shark franchise, by looking into 10 things that you may not know about Jaws 3D, to see if the movie is redeemable, and can at least offer some enjoyment. Or if it is indeed just as bad as everyone says it is. So let's check it out. Number 10, it started off as a spoof. When Jaws producers David Brown and Richard D. Zanuck were working on the second movie, they knew that if a third Jaws movie was made, then no one would take it seriously. So they planned the third entry to be a spoof, titled People Zero Jaws 3. Kind of like a scoreboard, I guess. Although technically, because Jaws lost in the first two movies, shouldn't it technically be called People 2 Jaws 1? I don't know. The movie was to be a wacky National Lampoon-styled comedy romp directed by Joe Dante, and was to feature oddball comedic scenes like Jaws author Peter Benchley to be eaten by a shark in his swimming pool, along with aliens trying to blend in shark disguises. Needless to say, Universal Pictures didn't see the funny side of it and rejected the idea, and felt that Jaws should be played for scares, not laughs. And supposedly, even original Jaws director Steven Spielberg was so outraged by the idea, he threatened to walk out of his movie deal with Universal Pictures. The irony to all this being, Jaws actually already did get parodied at the start of Spielberg's very own World War II comedy, 1941. Needless to say, producers Brown and Zanuck didn't end up working on the third Jaws movie. A lot of people say they would love to see Jaws 3 as it was intended to be. A wacky, off-the-wall comedy. But come on, seriously? Do people honestly think that a Jaws comedy would actually be a good movie? Keep in mind, the very year that Jaws 3D came out, Superman 3 came out, which actually did take a more comical approach. And everyone hated that movie. Number 9, it was also going to have nothing to do with the previous movies.
Before I had you on my mind, why be so unkind?
Legendary writer Richard Matheson wrote the original script for Jaws 3D, before the script got seen to by, quote, script doctors. Richard Matheson is a credit to his profession, having written scripts for The Twilight Zone, along with writing memorable novels such as I Am Legend and What Dreams May Come, and working on scripts for movies such as Jewel and Somewhere in Time. His original premise was that a shark goes upstream and gets caught in a lake, and the movie was to be a standalone film with new characters. However, Universal wanted the script to connect to the previous Jaws movies, so it was decided to revolve around the two Brody sons, with the odd reference thrown here and there to the previous movies. Basically, just connecting dots where dots really don't exist, hence why in an 8-year span, the Brody sons have gone from being small boys to being in their mid-30s. Matheson claims that he had a good script, it's just that his ideas were never fully realised due to changes being made. Number 8. Roy Scheider was hell-bent to not star in the movie.
Listen up to your local DJ. You better hear what he's got to say.
Mephistopheles couldn't talk me into doing Jaws 3. These are the words spoken by actor Roy Scheider, who wanted more than anything to not star in the third Jaws installment, as his legendary part of Chief Martin Brody. The disgruntled actor originally had no interest in starring in the franchise's second installment, Jaws 2, but he was forced to do so as he had a movie contract with Universal Pictures. So, in a way, I guess you could say that Scheider was drafted into Jaws 2. In 1983, he was still under a Universal contract, so to assure that he couldn't be pulled into doing Jaws 3D, he signed himself on to star in the movie Blue Thunder, thus making him unavailable. Blue Thunder is an action thriller involving a police officer, a high-tech helicopter, and a sinister government plan. Blue Thunder didn't make as much money as Jaws 3D, but definitely got much better reviews. So, yeah, it actually looks like Roy Scheider dodged a bullet. Number 7. Attack of the Number Threes. Some of the biggest movies to come out of the 1970s definitely include Star Wars, Jaws, and Superman the movie. Fun, box office powerhouse movies that would go on to shape the way for cinema in the 1980s. However, these three movies would end up going against each other in 1983 in their third installments, as that year Jaws 3D went up against Superman 3 and Return of the Jedi, the third installment in the original Star Wars trilogy. The irony being that many people claim that these third entries represent a time in these franchises when they started to lose their way and glory of what they once were. Their downfalls, if you will. Although a Star Wars, Jaws, and Superman box office smackdown does sound pretty awesome, I guess back in 1983, the battle was more of a whimper than it was a triumph. No, I don't care. I still like these three movies and get tons of enjoyment out of them. I mean, who cares what the majority has to say? I say if you enjoy something, then keep enjoying it. Number 6, it was directed by one-time director. So with the mammoth task of not only making a Jaws movie, but a Jaws movie filmed in 3D and set in SeaWorld, the big question is who could possibly take on the challenge? Well, as mentioned, Gremlins director Joe Dante was originally on board to direct a third Jaws movie, but that idea was scrapped when the original plan of making Jaws a comedy was scrapped. So the director they got to direct Jaws 3D was Joe Alves. Wait, who? Joe Alves is a production designer who worked on movies such as The Sugarland Express, Escape from New York, and the original Jaws. However, when he worked on Jaws 2, he also took on the position of second unit director, showcasing that Alves has a great cinematic eye. So I guess from there it was decided to hire him to direct Jaws 3D, despite the fact that he hadn't directed a feature film prior. I don't think it's Alves' fault. He was offered a job to do, and he did it. Many people feel that the directing in the movie is weak compared to the first two movies. The poor guy even won a Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Director. Look, I think he does a competent job. However, I do think he needed more directing experience under his belt, and that the movie would have benefited more if a more acclaimed director was used. But hey, it is what it is. But sadly, Alves' directing career would never further after Jaws 3D, as he never directed a movie after his experience on the film. Number 5. Jaws vs Spy Kids. Despite Jaws3D's negative reviews and general disappointment from fans, the movie still performed quite well in the box office, with the movie making $13.4 million in its opening week, making it the highest grossing opening 3D movie for a solid straight 20 years. That is until Spy Kids 3D came out and wiped Jaws 3D off its box office record-breaking position, as when Spy Kids 3D came out in 2003, the Spy Kids movie made $33.4 million on its opening. So no matter how many times people complain about Jaws 3D, nothing can change the fact that for 20 years straight, the movie broke a record and held that record, and that it took Sylvester Stallone and his strange costumes to knock Jaws 3D off its pedestal. Speaking of records, there wouldn't even be another 3D shark movie until 2011's Shark Night. Number 4. A Star is Born. Jaws 3D features actress Leah Thompson in her first movie role, as she played SeaWorld employee and love interest to the Sean Brody character, Kelly. Although Jaws 3D wasn't the big hit that everyone thought it would be, Thompson would still make it big 2 years later as she starred as Marty McFly's mum Lorraine in Back to the Future, where she played both a young naive teenager and a worn-out middle-aged alcoholic, proving that she has a pretty good acting range, and Back to the Future definitely put her on the map. However, as far as Jaws 3D goes, actress Jennifer Jason Leigh originally auditioned for the role of Kelly, and it actually would have made sense to cast Leigh in the role, as 1 year earlier she starred in a powerful role in the teen drama Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but she lost the part of Kelly to Thompson. Also in Jaws 3D, there is a scene where the main characters are meeting up in a bar, and supposedly while filming this scene, one of the extras kept hounding Thompson and nagging her for an autograph. To which Dennis Quaid got all protective and told the extra to stop harassing Thompson. Yeah, there are actually quite a few stories floating around out there about how much of a nice guy and a gentleman Dennis Quaid is. Number 3. 2D conversion. Out of all the Jaws movies, Jaws 3D has the most edits. Even before the movie was released, cuts had to be made to assure that it wouldn't get an R rating, because the classification board were really concerned about crunching noises that were added in several scenes where Jaws eats people. And more cuts had to be made to the movie when released in the UK to assure that the movie wouldn't get a rating of 15. But the biggest change to the movie in its lifetime is the conversion to 2D. The first time I saw Jaws 3D was on VHS, and I actually didn't know that the movie originally was in 3D. And I remember it had this really interesting and weird title credit, which at the time I thought was shaped to look like Jaws' mouth. But then when seeing the movie on DVD several years later, I was shocked to see these almost Star Wars kind of credits, which is what the credits originally looked like when the movie was released theatrically in 3D. And yet there's even another kind of font credits that were used floating around out there, meaning that all up there are 3 different title sequences for Jaws 3D. Sadly, the 2D conversion wasn't too desirable, as in both the VHS and DVD prints, the picture could often look blurry due to the conversion. However, in 2012 the picture was finally cleaned up, giving it a polished look, leaving the movie probably looking the best that it's ever going to look. Number 2. Trading cards. So as far as merchandise goes, Jaws 3D got a series of trading cards. The cards were made by the Topps Company, who made trading card tie-ins for many movies, including Raiders of the Lost Ark, Gremlins, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and Batman, to name just a few. Heck, even Grease got its own Topps trading card series. However, what makes the Jaws 3D cards stand out is the fact that the cards themselves were often printed in 3D, in keeping in fashion with the movie it's based on. But what does it for me is that I love the description on some of these cards. Like, it doesn't give you any backstory as to what's going on. Nope, it just throws you in there. Like this one of the Calvin character played by Louis Gossett Jr., which simply says Calvin Buckard has accidentally allowed the killer shark to enter SeaWorld. Good one, Calvin. Damn it, Calvin, you had one job to do! Number 1, Back to Basics poster. Jaws3D has the amazing movie poster of the Jaws shark menacingly looming over SeaWorld, while skiers get terrorized by a giant fin. It looks both very well drawn and epic, but what makes this poster stand out to me is that it uses the same image of the Jaws shark from the first movie's poster. As when Jaws 2 came out, the shark was redesigned to look like a psychotic prehistoric hellbeast. I don't know why, but I was just never a fan of this illustrated version of the shark. It's like they were trying too hard to make it look scary, whereas this design is more subtle and shark-like. This image of Jaws was then used yet again for the 1987 installment Jaws the Revenge. And if you want to know what I have to say about that movie, then watch my video on it. Spoilers, it's not very good. Okay, the movie isn't good per se. I mean, after all, the effects are bad, and that's its biggest weakness. It's a 3D special effects movie that offers very poor 3D special effects. And because the effects don't exactly wow the viewer, it makes the experience of Jaws 3D feel empty. But that said, the movie still has charm and likability, and often makes me smile when I watch it. So it is a bad film, but it's a bad film that I enjoy. So I put it up there in the Howard the Duck category. Anyway, I'm Minty, and seriously Calvin, one job. You just had to do one job. See ya.